Maya was only 7 years old when she first noticed something special about her parents' bedroom. Every single night, without fail, her mom and dad would disappear behind that wooden door together. Even when they had been arguing earlier about bills or work, they always ended up in the same bed. Living in their small apartment in the city, Maya shared a room with her older sister, while her two brothers squeezed into the tiny back room. The walls were thin, and she could hear everything. Sometimes she would lie awake listening to her parents talking quietly to each other before they fell asleep. Their voices were always softer at night, gentler than during the day. Her mother would often tell her stories about love while braiding her hair in the mornings. "When two people really love each other," she would say, running her fingers through Maya's dark curls, "they never let anger keep them apart for too long, and they never ever sleep in different beds. That's how you know love is real." Maya believed every word. Why wouldn't she? Her parents had been married for 15 years and they seemed to have figured out this whole love thing. But then came the week that changed everything. Maya was 12, just starting to notice boys at school and wondering what love really meant. Her parents had been fighting more than usual. Money was tight because her dad's construction work had slowed down, and her mom was working double shifts at the diner. The fights were getting louder, lasting longer. One Tuesday evening, after a particularly heated argument about late bills, something different happened. Her father grabbed his pillow and a blanket and stormed out to the living room. Maya watched through her cracked bedroom door as he made himself a bed on their old, uncomfortable couch. That first night, her mother paced the hallway like a caged animal. Maya could hear her footsteps going back and forth, until, well past midnight. Her mom looked tired the next morning with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. The second night was worse. Her mother barely ate dinner and kept looking toward the living room where her father sat watching television alone. The whole house felt different. It was like someone had turned down the warmth somehow. Even Maya's little brothers seemed to sense that something was wrong. By the fourth night, Maya's mother was crying quietly while doing dishes. Maya had never seen her mom cry before. Not even when Grandpa died. This was scarier than any fight they'd ever had because it was so quiet, so hopeless. Maya's older sister tried to explain that their parents were just going through a rough patch, that all couples fight sometimes. But Maya knew better. She had been listening to her mother's stories about love for years. If her parents weren't sleeping together, their love was dying. It was that simple. On the seventh night, something magical happened. Maya was lying in bed when she heard footsteps in the hallway again, but this time they stopped at her parents' bedroom door. She heard it creak open, heard quiet voices, heard her father's heavier footsteps crossing the room. The next morning, both her parents were in the kitchen together. Her father was making coffee while her mother packed lunches. They weren't talking much, but they were moving around each other in that familiar dance that married couples do. The warmth was back in the house. "See?" her mother said later that day, catching Maya staring at them. "We worked it out, we belong together and we sleep together. That's what people do when they really love each other." Maya nodded, filing this lesson away in her heart. Love meant never sleeping apart. Love meant choosing to be together even when things got hard. Love meant sharing the same bed, every single night, no matter what. This belief grew stronger as Maya got older and started paying attention to other families. Her best friend's parents slept in separate rooms because her dad snored too loudly. Within 2 years, they were divorced. Her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, mentioned once that she and her husband had gotten twin beds to sleep better. That marriage ended before Maya finished 8th grade, but her grandparents, who lived just a few blocks away, were different. They had been married for over 50 years and still shared the same small bed they had bought as newlyweds. Maya's grandmother would laugh and say she couldn't fall asleep without hearing her husband's gentle breathing beside her. They were proof that her theory was right. "Love isn't just about the good times," her grandmother explained one afternoon, while teaching Maya to make empanadas. "It's about choosing each other every single day and especially every single night. When you find the right person, you'll never want to sleep without them." Maya absorbed these lessons like a sponge. She watched romantic movies and noticed that the couples who truly loved each other always ended up in bed together. She read romance novels where the biggest sign of commitment was when characters started sleeping in the same bed every night. By the time she turned 16, Maya had developed a very clear understanding of how love worked. It wasn't just about holding hands or saying sweet words. Real love, deep love, the kind that lasted forever, was proven by the simple act of sharing a bed every single night. Everything else was just surface level. She started testing this theory on the relationships around her. Her aunt and uncle, who seemed happy during family gatherings, slept together every night and had been married for 20 years. Her neighbor, who was always complaining about her boyfriend, revealed during a conversation that he often stayed at his own apartment, instead of spending the night. That relationship ended within months. The pattern was clear to Maya. People who truly loved each other couldn't bear to sleep apart. They chose each other's presence over comfort, over convenience, over everything else. They proved their love, not with words or gifts, but with the simple daily decision to share the most vulnerable hours of their lives together. This wasn't just a preference for Maya anymore. It had become her definition of love itself, and she was absolutely certain that when she found her own true love, they would never ever want to sleep apart. Maya's first real relationship happened during her second year of college. She met Ryan in her psychology class, and everything felt perfect from the start. He was kind, funny, and most importantly, he seemed to understand her need for closeness. Their first few dates went so well that when he suggested she stay over at his dorm room, Maya felt like all her dreams were coming true. Those early weeks were magical. Maya would pack a small bag every Friday afternoon and spend the entire weekend in Ryan's tiny dorm room. They would study together, watch movies on his laptop, and fall asleep talking about their future plans. Maya had never felt so complete, so sure that she had found her person. Ryan seemed to love having her around at first. He would brag to his roommate about how lucky he was to have a girlfriend who wanted to spend every night with him. Most girls play hard to get, he would say, but Maya actually wants to be with me all the time. But after about 3 months, things started to shift. Ryan had an early morning chemistry lab on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which meant he had to wake up at 6 in the morning. Maya was a heavy sleeper and often tossed and turned at night, making it hard for him to get good rest before those early classes. One Sunday evening, as Maya was packing her overnight bag like usual, Ryan hesitated before speaking. "Hey, maybe you could stay at your dorm tonight? I really need to get a good night's sleep before my lab tomorrow." Maya felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. She stood there holding her pajamas, trying to understand what he was really saying. "You don't want me to stay over?" "It's not that I don't want you here," Ryan explained quickly, seeing the hurt in her eyes. "I just need to sleep well tonight. One night apart won't kill us." But for Maya, it felt exactly like it might. She had never slept apart from someone she loved, not by choice. This wasn't how love was supposed to work. If Ryan truly loved her, he would want her beside him every single night, even if it meant being a little tired the next day. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't care about being tired," she said, her voice getting shaky. "You'd want me there no matter what." Ryan looked confused. "Maya, I do love you, but I also need to pass my classes. Can't you understand that?" She couldn't. In her mind, love meant choosing your person over everything else, including comfort and convenience. Her parents had shared a bed through financial stress, arguments, and her dad's snoring. Her grandparents had slept side by side for 50 years without ever mentioning being uncomfortable. That night, Maya stayed at her own dorm, but didn't sleep at all. She kept checking her phone, hoping Ryan would text her and ask her to come over. When morning came and there was no message, she felt more alone than she ever had in her life. The pattern continued over the next few months. Whenever Ryan suggested they spend a night apart, Maya would get upset. She couldn't explain why it hurt so much, but it felt like rejection every single time. She started bringing earplugs for Ryan and promised to sleep more quietly. She offered to set her own alarm so she could wake up early with him. "You're making this more complicated than it needs to be," Ryan said during one of their discussions. "Sometimes people just need their own space. It doesn't mean anything bad." But Maya couldn't accept that. Space felt like distance, and distance felt like the beginning of the end. She had seen it happen with her friends' parents, with her teacher, with every couple who stopped prioritizing their nighttime togetherness. Ryan tried to compromise. He suggested they could sleep together 5 nights a week instead of 7. He promised that needing space didn't mean he loved her any less. But Maya heard these suggestions as proof that his love wasn't as strong as she thought it was. Things got worse when Ryan's roommate moved out and he got the room to himself. Maya saw this as the perfect opportunity to basically move in with him. She started keeping more and more of her things in his room and spending less time at her own dorm. Her roommate barely saw her anymore. "Don't you think you're moving a little fast?" her roommate asked one day when Maya stopped by to grab some clothes. "You've only been dating for 6 months." Maya didn't think it was fast at all. If anything, she felt like they were behind schedule. How could you truly know if someone loved you if you weren't sharing your most vulnerable moments together every single night? The relationship started falling apart around the 8-month mark. Ryan began feeling overwhelmed by Maya's constant presence. He missed having time to himself, missed being able to study late without worrying about disturbing her, missed the simple freedom of falling asleep alone sometimes. When he tried to talk to Maya about needing more balance in their relationship, she heard it as confirmation of her worst fears. He was pulling away. He was proving that his love had limits, conditions, requirements that didn't include her. "Real couples don't need breaks from each other," she told him during their final argument. "If you loved me the way I love you, you'd never want to sleep without me." Ryan looked exhausted. "Maya, love isn't supposed to feel this heavy. You're not my other half. You're my girlfriend. I need to be my own person too." But Maya couldn't understand the difference. In her world, love meant becoming one person who shared one bed every single night. Anything less was just settling. The breakup was devastating, but Maya convinced herself it proved her theory was right. Ryan hadn't been her true love after all, because true love would never ask for space at bedtime. Her next relationship followed an almost identical pattern. She met Jake at a coffee shop, and within weeks they were spending every night together. Jake was more patient than Ryan, lasting almost a year before he finally admitted that Maya's need for constant togetherness was making him feel trapped rather than loved. "It's like you're afraid I'll disappear if you close your eyes," he said, during their breakup conversation. "That's not love, Maya. That's fear." But Maya couldn't see the difference. All she knew was that another person had chosen comfort over commitment, space over love. She was starting to wonder if anyone was capable of the kind of deep, unconditional love she believed in. By her mid-20s, Maya had turned her belief about bed sharing into a complete lifestyle. She couldn't just date anyone anymore. She needed someone who understood that real love meant never sleeping apart, not even for one night. She rewrote her dating profile to be crystal clear about her expectations. "Looking for someone who believes in true togetherness. If you need your own space at night, we're probably not a match." She figured it was better to be upfront than to waste time with people who didn't share her values. Most guys thought her profile was a little intense, but a few were intrigued. Maya went on dozens of first dates, always steering the conversation toward relationships and commitment. She had a mental checklist of questions that helped her figure out if someone was serious about love. "How do you feel about couples who sleep in separate beds?" she would ask casually over dinner. "What's the longest relationship you've been in, and did you live together? Do you think space is important in a relationship?" The wrong answers eliminated most potential partners pretty quickly. Then she met Carter through a dating app. He was a marketing guy who seemed to understand what she was looking for. On their third date, when Maya explained her philosophy about bed sharing and true love, Carter nodded thoughtfully. "I get it," he said. "Why would you want to be with someone if you don't want to be with them all the time? My parents have been married for 30 years and they still sleep together every night." Maya felt like she had finally found her person. Carter was romantic, attentive, and most importantly, he seemed to share her belief that love meant choosing to be together always. Their relationship moved quickly. Within a month, Maya was staying at Carter's apartment every single night. He had a nice place with a comfortable king-size bed, and Maya felt more at peace than she had in years. This was what she had been searching for. Someone who didn't See, her need for closeness is clingy or overwhelming. For the first few months, everything was perfect. Carter seemed genuinely happy to have Maya there every night. They would fall asleep talking and wake up in each other's arms. Maya felt like she was finally living the kind of love story she had always dreamed of. But then Carter's job started requiring more travel. At first, it was just overnight trips to nearby cities. Carter would leave on a Tuesday and come back Wednesday evening. Maya handled the first few trips okay, though she didn't sleep well when he was gone. She would stay up late texting him and wake up early to call him. "I miss you so much," she would tell him over video chat from his empty bedroom. "I can't wait for you to get home." Carter found her attachment sweet at first. "I miss you too, babe. I'll be home tomorrow night." But as his travel increased, Maya's anxiety got worse. She started having panic attacks on nights when Carter was away. She would lie in his bed surrounded by his pillows, but unable to fall asleep. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty, too dangerous somehow. One night when Carter was on a 3-day business trip, Maya couldn't handle being alone anymore. At 11:30, she called her friend Lisa. "Can I come sleep on your couch tonight?" she asked, trying not to sound as desperate as she felt. "Carter's out of town and I just can't sleep alone." Lisa was confused but said yes. Maya showed up at her apartment with a pillow and a blanket, explaining that she just needed someone nearby to feel safe. This became a pattern. Whenever Carter traveled, Maya would either crash at friends' places or book last-minute flights to join him. She started showing up at his hotel rooms unannounced, surprising him during business dinners, extending his trips by tagging along. Carter tried to be understanding at first. "I know you miss me," he said during one of their conversations about her travel anxiety. "But sometimes I need to focus on work, and some of these trips are really not appropriate for partners to attend." Maya heard this as proof that his work was more important to him than their relationship. "If you really loved me, you'd find a way for us to always be together," she argued. "Other couples figure it out, why can't we?" She started researching Carter's work trips obsessively, trying to find hotels nearby where she could stay, looking for flights that would get her there the same day he arrived. She would show up at his office building when he returned from trips, having missed him so much that she couldn't wait for him to come home. Carter's friends and co-workers started making comments. His boss mentioned that having Maya appear at business events was unprofessional. His friends said she seemed a little too attached, a little too needy. "She's just very loving," Carter would defend her. But privately, he was starting to feel overwhelmed. The breaking point came during Carter's longest business trip yet, a week-long conference in another state. Maya had begged to come with him, but it was a work event with scheduled activities from morning to night. "I'll just stay in the hotel room," she promised. "I'll be there when you get back each evening. I won't bother you during the day." But Carter said no. It was an important career opportunity, and he needed to focus completely on work. Maya didn't handle the separation well. She called him constantly during the day, sent dozens of text messages, stayed awake most of the night so she could video chat with him when he got back to his room. By the third day, she was barely functioning. She booked a flight without telling him. Carter was shocked when Maya showed up at his hotel room at midnight on Thursday, crying and exhausted from travel and sleep deprivation. "I couldn't do it anymore," she sobbed. "I can't sleep without you. I can't function when we're apart. This proves you don't love me the way I love you." Carter held her while she cried, but something had shifted in him. Looking at Maya, pale, exhausted, having spent money she couldn't afford on a last-minute flight just to avoid sleeping alone, he realized their relationship had become unhealthy. "Maya, this isn't normal," he said gently. "Love shouldn't make you feel like you can't survive on your own." But Maya couldn't hear what he was really saying. All she heard was another person telling her that love had limits, that it wasn't strong enough to overcome practical concerns like work trips and personal space. Their relationship ended 2 months later. Carter tried to explain that he needed a partner who could function independently, someone whose love felt like a choice rather than a desperate need. Maya was heartbroken, but also more convinced than ever that she just hadn't found the right person yet. True love, The kind her grandparents had would never require someone to sleep alone. She just needed to keep looking for someone who understood that real commitment meant never choosing anything over being together. After Carter, Maya's life started falling apart in ways she never expected. She had always been so focused on finding the right person to share her bed that she never learned how to be comfortable alone. Now, at 28 years old, she was facing the terrifying reality of sleeping by herself every single night. Her small apartment suddenly felt like a prison. She would lie awake for hours, staring at the empty space beside her, wondering how other people managed to sleep alone without feeling like they were dying inside. She tried everything she could think of, buying extra pillows to fill the bed, playing sleep sounds on her phone, even getting a large stuffed animal like she'd had as a child. Nothing worked. Maya's sleep became so poor that it started affecting her job at the marketing firm where she worked. She would show up exhausted, barely able to concentrate during meetings. Her boss noticed her performance dropping and pulled her aside for a conversation. "Is everything okay at home?" her supervisor asked kindly. "You seem really tired lately." Maya couldn't explain that she was falling apart because she couldn't sleep without another person beside her. It sounded crazy when she thought about saying it out loud. Instead, she made excuses about stress and promised to do better. But things only got worse. Maya started making desperate decisions just to avoid sleeping alone. She began dating again, but this time she wasn't even pretending to look for real relationships. She just needed warm bodies to fill the empty space in her bed. She went out with Kevin, a guy from her gym who seemed nice enough. On their first date, Maya steered the conversation toward spending the night together. Kevin was surprised but interested. Maya didn't care about getting to know him better or building a real connection. She just needed someone to sleep next to. That arrangement lasted 3 weeks before Kevin realized that Maya wasn't really interested in him as a person. She barely talked to him during the day, but became clingy and desperate every evening when bedtime approached. Next came Tony, a coworker who had always been friendly with her. Maya asked him out, and within days she was practically living at his tiny studio apartment. Tony lived with 2 roommates in a cramped space, and his bed was barely big enough for one person. Maya didn't care. She squeezed onto that narrow mattress, night after night, getting terrible sleep but feeling safer than she did alone. Tony's roommates started complaining about having an extra person around all the time. The apartment wasn't set up for another resident, and Maya's presence disrupted their routines. After a month, Tony gently suggested that Maya might want to spend some nights at her own place. The suggestion sent Maya into a panic attack. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight, couldn't imagine going back to her empty apartment and empty bed. Tony had no idea how to handle her reaction and started pulling away from the relationship entirely. Maya's friends began to notice that something was seriously wrong. Her best friend since college, Jessica, tried to talk to her about the pattern she was seeing. "You're jumping from guy to guy, and it's not like you," Jessica said during lunch one afternoon. "You don't even seem to like these people. What's really going on?" Maya tried to explain her need for companionship at night, but Jessica looked concerned rather than understanding. "Maya, you're 30 years old," Jessica said carefully. "It's not normal to be unable to sleep alone. Have you thought about talking to someone about this?" But Maya didn't want to hear that her behavior wasn't normal. In her mind, everyone else was the problem. They had all forgotten what real love was supposed to look like. They had settled for relationships that were convenient rather than deep and meaningful. Her work performance continued to decline. She was making mistakes on important projects, missing deadlines, and showing up late because she was exhausted from uncomfortable sleeping arrangements. Her boss called her in for a formal meeting about her performance issues. "We value you here," he said, "but we need to see some improvement. Is there anything we can do to help you get back on track?" Maya realized she was in danger of losing her job, but she didn't know how to fix the problem without solving her sleeping situation first. She started looking for roommates, thinking that having someone else in the apartment might help her feel less alone at night. She found Rebecca, a graduate student who needed a cheap place to live. Rebecca seemed perfect at first. Quiet, clean, and home most evenings. But Maya's behavior made Rebecca uncomfortable pretty quickly. Maya would find excuses to hang around Rebecca's room in the evenings. She would knock on her door to ask questions that could have waited until morning. She started suggesting they could share Rebecca's larger bed instead of sleeping separately, claiming it would save money on heating costs. Rebecca was kind, but firm about maintaining boundaries. "I need my privacy," she explained. "I'm happy to be roommates, but I'm not looking for someone to share my personal space with." Maya felt rejected all over again. Even living with someone else, she was still sleeping alone every night. The loneliness felt just as intense as when she had lived by herself. Things reached a crisis point when Maya met Daniel at a coffee shop. He seemed lonely too, recently divorced and looking for connection. Maya thought she had finally found someone who would understand her need for constant companionship. But Daniel had his own issues with attachment and boundaries. He wanted to spend every waking moment with Maya, not just sleep beside her. He would show up at her work unannounced, call her dozens of times throughout the day, and get upset if she wanted to spend time with friends. For the first time, Maya experienced what it felt like to be on the receiving end of someone else's unhealthy attachment. Daniel's neediness felt suffocating, rather than loving. When he suggested they should never be apart, even during work hours, Maya finally understood what her previous partners had been trying to tell her. "This doesn't feel like love," she told Daniel during their breakup. "It feels like you need me to exist." As soon as the words left her mouth, Maya realized she had been describing her own behavior for years. The relationship with Daniel lasted only 6 weeks, but it was enough to make Maya see herself clearly for the first time. She had been so focused on getting her needs met that she had never considered whether her approach to love was healthy for anyone involved. Maya's sister called her one evening and found her crying on the phone. "I think I've been doing everything wrong," Maya admitted. "I thought love meant never wanting to be apart, but maybe I've just been scared this whole time." Her sister was gentle but honest. "Maya, you've been running from being alone your entire adult life. Maybe it's time to figure out why that scares you so much." That night, Maya slept alone in her own bed and didn't try to distract herself with dating apps or calls to friends. For the first time, she let herself feel the full weight of her fear and loneliness. It was terrifying, but it was also the beginning of something new. The decision to see a therapist wasn't easy for Maya. She had always believed that talking to strangers about personal problems was something other people did, people who didn't understand love the way she did. But after her relationship with Daniel showed her how her own behavior looked from the outside, she knew she needed help. Dr. Patricia Williams was a warm woman in her 50s who specialized in relationship patterns and attachment issues. During their first session, Maya tried to explain that she wasn't there to change her beliefs about love, just to find better ways to find compatible partners. "I know what real love looks like," Maya said confidently. "I just keep meeting people who aren't ready for that level of commitment." Dr. Williams listened without judgment, asking gentle questions about Maya's childhood and her relationships. She didn't argue with Maya's beliefs or try to convince her she was wrong. Instead, she helped Maya explore where these ideas had come from. "Tell me about your parents' relationship," Dr. Williams said. "What did love look like in your house growing up?" Maya told the story she had been telling herself for years. How her parents proved their love by always sleeping together. How they worked through problems by choosing togetherness over comfort. But as she spoke, Dr. Williams asked follow-up questions that made Maya think about details she had forgotten. "You mentioned your father slept on the couch for a week when you were 12, Dr. Williams noted. "What happened during that time? How did your parents actually solve their problems?" Maya had to think hard about this. She realized she had no idea how her parents had worked through their financial stress. She had only focused on the fact that they eventually returned to sleeping in the same bed. "Maybe they talked during the day," Maya admitted. "I was just a kid, so I probably didn't understand everything that was happening." Over several sessions, Dr. Williams helped Maya see that her 12-year-old brain had created a simple formula for love that might not have captured the full complexity of adult relationships. More importantly, She began to understand the difference between love and anxiety. When you can't sleep without someone beside you, Dr. Williams explained, that might not be about love. That might be about fear. Love feels calm and safe. Fear feels urgent and desperate. This idea was revolutionary for Maya. She had always thought her intense need for closeness was proof of how deeply she could love. But Dr. Williams helped her see that real love actually required two complete people choosing to be together, not two halves desperately trying to become whole. The real breakthrough came when Dr. Williams suggested Maya spend 1 month sleeping alone, focusing on building a healthy relationship with solitude. "I can't do that," Maya said immediately. "You don't understand how bad it gets when I'm alone." "What exactly do you think will happen?" Dr. Williams asked. Maya couldn't answer. She just knew that being alone at night felt dangerous, like something terrible would happen if she didn't have another person nearby. Dr. Williams explained that Maya's fear of sleeping alone was probably connected to anxiety rather than love. She taught Maya breathing techniques, gave her tools for managing panic attacks, and even prescribed a mild sleep aid to help during the transition. The first week of sleeping alone was the hardest thing Maya had ever done. She would lie in bed, with her heart racing, convinced something was wrong. She called the mental health crisis line twice, not because she wanted to hurt herself, but because the panic felt so overwhelming. But Dr. Williams had prepared her for this. "The feelings are real," she had said, "but they're not dangerous. You can survive them." Gradually, Maya started to notice the difference between being alone and being abandoned. When she was alone by choice, working on herself and building her independence, it felt different than when someone had left her. She began to understand that solitude could be peaceful rather than terrifying. During her 3rd month of therapy, Maya met Oliver at a bookstore. He was browsing the same section she was, and they struck up a conversation about their favorite authors. For the first time in years, Maya didn't immediately start thinking about whether he would be willing to share a bed with her every night. Instead, she found herself genuinely curious about Oliver as a person. They talked for an hour about books, travel, and their careers. When he asked for her number, Maya said yes because she wanted to get to know him better, not because she needed someone to fill her bed. Their relationship developed slowly. Maya was honest with Oliver about her journey in therapy and her history of unhealthy attachment patterns. Oliver appreciated her honesty and shared his own struggles with anxiety and relationships. When they eventually decided to spend the night together after 2 months of dating, it felt natural rather than desperate. And when Oliver mentioned that he sometimes preferred sleeping alone when he was stressed or sick, Maya felt anxious but didn't immediately end the relationship. "I'm still learning that love doesn't mean never being apart," Maya told him honestly. "Sometimes I might need reassurance, but I'm working on it." Oliver was patient and understanding. He didn't make fun of Maya's fears or dismiss them as silly. Instead, he helped her practice being comfortable with occasional nights apart. A year later, Maya and Oliver moved in together, but they kept the second bedroom set up with a comfortable bed. Some nights they slept apart. When one of them was sick, when Oliver had early work meetings, or when Maya felt triggered and needed to practice her independence skills. These separations still caused Maya some anxiety, but she had learned tools for managing those feelings. More importantly, she had discovered that choosing to come back together after time apart actually made their relationship stronger. Maya's mother visited during their first year of living together. Over dinner, Maya's mom mentioned that she was dating someone new, a kind man named Frank who lived in his own apartment across town. "Don't you want to move in together?" Maya asked, genuinely curious. Her mother smiled. "We spend some nights together and some nights apart. At our age, we've both learned that love isn't about proving yourself every single night. It's about choosing each other again and again." For the first time, Maya could hear this wisdom without feeling defensive. She was beginning to understand that love wasn't something you had to grip tightly to keep. Real love was spacious enough to include independence, strong enough to survive temporary distance, and secure enough to trust that people would choose to return. Maya's journey wasn't complete. She still felt a flutter of anxiety when she and Oliver slept apart, and sometimes she needed extra reassurance that their relationship was solid, but she had learned to sit with discomfort rather than demanding that others manage it for her. Most importantly, Maya had discovered the difference between being loved and being needed. Oliver loved her because of who she was, not because he couldn't function without her. And Maya was learning to love him the same way, freely, generously, and without the desperate grip of fear. The last scene of Maya's story takes place on a quiet Sunday morning. She wakes up alone in their guest bedroom where she had chosen to sleep because Oliver was getting over a cold. Instead of feeling abandoned or rejected, she feels peaceful. She can hear Oliver making coffee in the kitchen, and she knows that in a few minutes she'll join him for breakfast. But first, she lies in bed for a moment, appreciating the simple miracle of feeling safe in her own skin, in her own space, in her own life. Love, she finally understands, isn't about never being alone. It's about being so secure in yourself and your relationships that you can be alone without being afraid.